I still remember the sound of the final nail being driven in. It echoed in my ears like applause. I had made something real, something mine, and in less than 24 hours, it was taken from me. My name's Ava. I'm 29, single, no kids, and I've always played by the rules. I budgeted like a maniac, skipped vacations, turned down nights out just so I could scrape together enough to feel stable. Not rich, not even well off, just safe. That's all I wanted. Safety, control, a future I could count on. That future was supposed to start in a tiny guest house I built with every cent I had. When I realized buying a home outright was a fantasy I couldn't afford, my parents, God bless them, offered a solution. Why not build something on our land? My mom had said. We've got space, and it'll be yours when it's done. Think of it as an investment in yourself. I wanted to believe her, so I said yes. And for the next 9 months, I lived and breathed that guest house. Weekends, spent at hardware stores, PTO burned on meeting contractors, nights, researching tile samples and low voltage lighting like my life depended on it. I picked the paint, the cabinets, the fixtures. Every detail had my fingerprints on it. It wasn't just a place to sleep. It was my dream standing on 4 walls and a slab foundation. But the day I showed up with my suitcase, heart pounding with anticipation, my dad met me at the back gate. He didn't even look guilty. "You'll have to find somewhere else, sweetheart," he said casually. "Your brother needs it more right now." I blinked, thinking I'd misheard him. "What?" "Dylan's going through a rough patch," he added, like that explained anything. "He's got a kid on the way, you don't. You're still young, you'll figure something out." And just like that, I wasn't a daughter, I was a placeholder. No warning, no discussion, not even a thank you for pouring my soul into something they had clearly never intended to give me. I remember just standing there, suitcase still in my hand, heart sliding into my stomach like ice. I looked at my mom. She smiled like this was a normal Tuesday. "It's still part of the family, Ava. And family helps family." I could have screamed. I didn't. I just nodded, walked back to my car, didn't say a word. And I think that silence scared them more than yelling ever could. The next week was quiet, eerily quiet. I didn't return their calls, didn't answer their texts. I didn't block them, didn't give them the satisfaction of thinking I was mad. I was just done. Because the truth was, I saw it coming. Not that specific betrayal, but the pattern. The one where Dylan screwed up, and I cleaned it up. The one where my needs were negotiable, and his were emergency level urgent. Still, part of me hoped this time would be different. I thought maybe, just maybe, building something would mean I'd finally earned my place. Turns out, I was just their unpaid contractor. And as I stared at my phone buzzing with more missed calls, I remembered something important, something they hadn't thought of. The last few weeks of construction, I wasn't the one who finished the job. They were in a rush, pushing to meet some imaginary deadline, and my dad, being the genius he is, decided to save a few bucks. Fired the licensed plumber I hired, and brought in his buddy from church to finish things. A guy who used to do this stuff back in the day. I begged him not to, told him it was a mistake, but he brushed me off. "You worry too much. It's just a guest house, not a palace." Guess what? It wasn't a palace, but it was a disaster. Because exactly 8 days after Dylan moved in, I got the call. My mom, voice high and tight like she was trying to hide how pissed she was. "Ava, I don't know if you did something, but there's water leaking into the walls. The electricity keeps flickering. Dylan says the place smells like mildew. It's unlivable." I didn't respond. Not right away. Just listened to the voicemail again and again. Then I laughed. Not because I sabotaged it, because I didn't. I walked away clean, but they hadn't. And now they were neck deep in the consequences of their own choices. I could have swooped in, fixed everything, hired professionals, smoothed it all out, but I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, it wasn't my job to clean up their mess. And oh, it felt good. It wasn't long before the real desperation started. Dylan texted, then called, then texted again. My dad called me, full of bravado turned panic. "Ava, what's going on with the house? Did you leave something unfinished?" "No," I said calmly. "You did," he stammered. "You're being unreasonable. We don't have the money to fix this right now, I know, I replied. Should have thought of that before you gave away a house you didn't understand how to finish. And then, the best part? He asked me to come back. Not to apologize. Not to make things right. Just to fix it. Quietly. Like a good daughter. I hung up before he could finish the sentence. But they weren't done. Oh no. That was just the start, because the guest house? That wasn't just supposed to be a little place for Dylan and his girlfriend. It was supposed to be their forever start. Their version of finally making it. And it was falling apart faster than their lies could cover. The walls were swelling. The plumbing reeked. The power kept cutting out. Turns out, when you build a dream on someone else's foundation, you better hope they stick around to hold it up. I didn't. And now? They were living in the mess they made. You know what's funny? They expected me to feel guilty, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Like walking away from being used was somehow a betrayal. But I didn't feel guilty, not even close. I felt free. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying someone else's chaos. I wasn't fixing, smoothing, apologizing for things I didn't do. I was just existing, quietly, calmly, watching the storm from a safe distance, instead of being stuck in the eye of it. But the storm didn't stay contained. Word started getting out. It was subtle at first, texts from cousins I hadn't talked to in months. Hey, are you okay? I heard there was drama at your folks' place. Drama. That's one word for it. At first, I didn't respond. I let the confusion simmer, let them all wonder what happened. I knew how my parents operated. They didn't just lie, they rewrote history. Probably told everyone I had a tantrum and stormed off, left the guest house half finished. That Dylan had been kind enough to step in and pick up the pieces. Classic Ava, they'd say. Emotional, ungrateful, dramatic. But this time, people weren't swallowing the story so easily. Because the mold, the leaks, the electrical surges, those weren't things you could blame on attitude. That was shoddy construction. And everyone in the family knew I wasn't the type to half-ass anything. So the questions started coming in a little sharper. From my Aunt Marla, wait, didn't you pay for that place? Your mom said Dylan had to redo the whole thing because you bailed. I didn't bother arguing. I just sent her a screenshot of the invoices all in my name. Labor, materials, appliances, permits, every cent accounted for. And then a photo of the text where my mom told me, "This will be your place forever. You've earned it." Marla's reply? Just 3 words. Holy hell. Ava. And that's when I knew the story was starting to crack, just like the drywall in the guest house. Meanwhile, the pressure inside my parents' home must have been boiling. Because suddenly, Dylan's girlfriend Chelsea was in my DMs. Not apologizing, not asking nicely, accusing. Ava, this is ridiculous. We can't even move in, and my OB says the stress is bad for the baby. You need to stop being selfish and fix it. Selfish. That word hit me like a slap only. It didn't sting the way it used to. I read the message 3 times, then put my phone down and made a sandwich. Let them sit with their own mess for a while. See, the thing about entitlement, it doesn't go away quietly. It kicks. It screams. It throws everything it can when it realizes it's losing control. And they were losing it fast. Apparently, the city inspector had come by, refused to approve the occupancy permit, said the plumbing wasn't up to code, and the electrical box was outdated and improperly grounded. Classic DIY disaster. Funny how quickly everyone forgets I told my dad not to cut corners. That I begged him to let my licensed team finish the job. But sure, I'm the selfish one. It all would have faded into background noise if they hadn't tried to drag other people into it. Next thing I know, I'm getting calls from my grandmother. Now, my grandma is not someone you mess with. She's old school, sharp as a tack. The kind of woman who still sends handwritten birthday cards and knows exactly what's going on in everyone's life, whether you told her or not. She called me on a Tuesday night. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Ava, honey," she said, "I just had your mom on the phone. Said you walked out and left the family in ruins. That the guest house is falling apart and nobody knows why." Her voice was calm, but I could hear the weight in it. I sighed. Yeah, that's one version. She was quiet for a beat. So what's the truth? I paused. I hadn't told the full story to anyone, not really. But this was my grandma. She'd always seen through the family drama like fog on a windshield. So I told her, start to finish, the planning, the promises, the money. The moment I stood in front of that house with my suitcase, expecting a key and getting a goodbye instead, she didn't interrupt. Not once. Just listened. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, "That's one hell of a betrayal." I exhaled, some of the weight sliding off my chest. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It was." After that call, everything shifted. Because my grandmother didn't just believe me, she asked for proof. And I had it, receipts, photos, emails, text threads. Every inch of that project, from the foundation to the finish, was documented. Not because I thought I'd need it, but because I was proud of what I'd built. I was ready to share it with the world. I just hadn't expected that world to turn on me first. So I sent her the files, every last one. And by the end of the week, the whole family knew. I didn't tell them. I didn't have to. My grandma did. The next family dinner was legendary. I wasn't planning on going, but something in me said show up. So I did. I walked in late, on purpose. Not dramatic, just calm, collected. My mom looked like she'd swallowed her own tongue. Dylan stared at his plate like it was going to rescue him. My dad muttered something about respecting boundaries, which was rich, considering what they'd done to mine. And then my grandmother, bless her blunt soul, leaned forward and said, "So Ava, how much did you say you spent on that guest house again?" The silence, delicious. I smiled, cool and easy. A little over 60 grand. Every dollar from my own savings. Took me 4 years. There was nowhere to run after that. My aunt leaned in. "Wait, I thought Dylan paid for that?" I didn't say a word. Just looked at my parents. Let them try to explain. They didn't. By the end of the night, I didn't need to defend myself. The story had unraveled all on its own. The lies didn't hold up under the weight of evidence. And something incredible happened after that dinner. People started seeing me differently. Not just as the responsible one or the quiet one, but as someone who finally said no, who walked away, who refused to keep playing a rigged game. I didn't gloat, didn't post about it, didn't send a group text like, "Told you so." I just kept living. And they were left with a crumbling house, a pissed-off pregnant couple, and a reputation that was starting to rot, just like the plumbing they cheaped out on. After that dinner, nothing was said, but everything had changed. My parents didn't look at me once as I left, not even a flicker of eye contact. Dylan and Chelsea sat stiffly at the end of the table, plates untouched. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thick, heavy. The kind of quiet that only comes after the truth cracks open and spills everywhere. And the best part? I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't even have to defend myself. The facts did all the work. There was no shouting match, no dramatic meltdown, just a slow unraveling of the lies they'd wrapped themselves in. For the first time, they were the ones being questioned, and not just by me. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my cousin Jordan. "So, guest house drama, huh?" I laughed. It was the first time in weeks. I laughed without bitterness attached to it. "Yeah. Turns out betrayal looks a lot like moldy drywall and blown fuses." Jordan replied with a gif of popcorn and the words, "Let me know when the sequel drops." It was funny. But it also wasn't. Because this wasn't a story, it was my life. And while I'd made peace with walking away from that house, the consequences were still echoing. A few days later, I heard from Chelsea again. This time, it wasn't a guilt trip, it was panic. "Ava," she said over the phone, her voice low and rushed, "I need to ask, are there any legal issues with the house, like zoning stuff?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. The city inspector came again, said something about unapproved modifications. "We're being told we can't legally live there. They won't issue occupancy permits unless the foundation is re-inspected." Dylan's freaking out. He says it's your fault for not filing everything. I let out a slow breath. "Chelsea, I filed everything for the build I was managing, but your future father-in-law decided he could finish things himself. I stepped back when he stepped in. So if something's missing, it's not on me." Silence. Then she said it barely a whisper, "I think we're screwed." Apparently, that wasn't an exaggeration, because by the end of the week, it was official. The guest house was declared uninhabitable. The city gave them two options: gut it and redo it to code, or tear it down. I heard that from my uncle, not my parents, because of course they still hadn't called me. They were too busy scrambling, trying to spin it, trying to control the narrative before more people started asking questions. But there was nothing left to spin. They had stolen a home from me, and in doing so, they'd buried themselves in a financial and legal mess. All because they assumed I'd come back, that I'd be too hurt to stay silent, that I'd either forgive or forget. But I did neither. You know what people forget about betrayal? It's not just about the lie, it's about everything that comes after. The way it rewires how you see people, the way it shakes up what you believed was solid. For years, I thought if I just worked hard enough, kept my head down, did everything right, eventually I'd be appreciated, seen, valued. Turns out, being useful isn't the same as being loved. My parents didn't love me less than Dylan. They just loved what I could do for them more. That realization hit harder than any argument ever could. Because it wasn't about one house, it was about a lifetime of being the backup plan, the fixer, the dependable daughter who never asked for much and always delivered. Until I didn't. After the family dinner, the ripple effects kept spreading. My grandmother, bless her, wasn't quiet. She didn't scream, didn't gossip, but she had a way of speaking the truth in rooms where no one else would. Apparently, she'd called my mom the next day, told her she was ashamed of how they treated me, said Dylan needed to grow up and take responsibility instead of expecting me to be the safety net every time he burned a bridge. I wasn't on that call, but I heard about it from two aunts and a neighbor. That's how loud honesty travels when it's been kept quiet too long. 2 weeks after that dinner, I was at a coffee shop when I ran into Dylan. He looked tired, hollow-eyed, not the cocky, half-smirking version of my brother I was used to. He spotted me from across the room and walked over slowly, like he wasn't even sure he should. "Ava," he said, "can we talk?" I nodded. We sat outside, on a bench where people couldn't pretend not to hear us. He didn't dance around it. I didn't know it was your money. I didn't respond. I thought Mom and Dad paid for it. I raised an eyebrow. Even when you saw me managing the build, meeting with the contractor, hauling samples, you thought I was just playing project manager for fun? He looked down. I guess I didn't think about it. Exactly. They never thought about it because it was easier to assume I'd always be there, that I'd never say no, that my work, my time, my effort was theirs by default. "I'm sorry," he said. "Chelsea's furious. We're back in our old apartment. The landlord raised the rent. She blames me for everything." I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I just said, "Good." He blinked. I stood. "You don't get to use people and expect them to smile while you do it. Maybe you didn't know it was my money, but you knew that wasn't your house. You just didn't care." He didn't argue, just nodded. I deserve that. Then he added, almost like an afterthought, "You know, they're really struggling right now. Mom and Dad." "I know," I said. "So am I. Or had you forgotten I lost my home too?" Walking away from him, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel vengeful. I just felt lighter. It's strange. You spend so long carrying someone else's weight, you forget what your own steps feel like. But I was remembering. And every step forward, it felt more like freedom. A few days later, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. "Please come by this weekend. Let's talk." No pressure. I didn't answer right away. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I wanted to say yes, but because I wondered why she thought that message would work. Like we could just hit reset. Like the silence and betrayal could be wiped out by an invitation. She didn't say sorry. She said, "Let's talk." There's a difference. I didn't reply to my mom's message for 3 days. I could have ignored it altogether, blocked her number, deleted the thread, moved on without a word. But something in me, curiosity, maybe wanted to see what she'd say if I showed up. Not out of hope. I'd let go of that, just for closure. So that Saturday, I drove back to the house I used to think of as home. It looked the same. The hedges still trimmed, the front porch still stacked with my dad's old gardening tools. But it didn't feel the same. There was a weight in the air, like the walls had absorbed everything left unspoken. My mom answered the door like she hadn't just blown up my life. "Ava, honey, I'm glad you came." No hug. No guilt on her face. Just that tight smile she wore when she wanted things to go back to normal without actually being normal. I stepped inside. The living room was spotless, like she'd spent hours cleaning to make the house look put together. But the silence in the room said otherwise. My dad was sitting on the couch. He didn't stand up, just gave me a half nod like I was someone dropping by to deliver a package. I stayed standing. "You wanted to talk?" I said. My mom gestured to the armchair. "Sit, sweetheart." I didn't move. She sighed. "Okay, well, I guess we just wanted to clear the air." Clear the air, what a phrase. Like we just had a little misunderstanding over dinner. Not a betrayal that gutted the relationship from the inside out. My dad finally spoke. "Look, things didn't go the way anyone expected. Dylan needed help. We thought you'd understand." "You thought I'd be okay giving up my home?" I asked, not raising my voice, just letting the words land. My mom looked at me, that same patronizing tilt to her head. "It wasn't like that." "No?" I asked. "Then explain it to me." "Because I poured my savings into that house. I gave you weekends, vacation days, everything I had to build it. And the day it was finished, you gave it away." Her face faltered just for a second. "But not enough. We didn't give it away," she said. "It's still part of the family. That's not what you told me when you handed me my bags." Neither of them spoke. And then, finally, my dad said it. "We thought you'd be more flexible." There it was. Not we were wrong. Not we're sorry. Just a vague disappointment that I hadn't been easier to take advantage of. I sat down, not because I was tired, but because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of thinking I was ready to leave again. I crossed my legs, folded my hands in my lap. "You lied to me," I said. "You told me that house would be mine, that it was my reward for being responsible, for staying close, for helping. You made a promise and broke it the second someone else wanted what I had." My mom looked uncomfortable, but she didn't argue. "You say you didn't mean to hurt me," I continued. "But you didn't just hurt me. You took something I built and handed it off like it meant nothing. You chose convenience over honesty. That's not a misunderstanding. That's betrayal." Another long silence. My dad leaned forward. "We never expected it to fall apart like this. If we had known," I cut him off. "You didn't care if it fell apart, because you assumed I'd be the one to fix it, like always." He opened his mouth to protest, but I kept going. "That's the part you still don't get. This isn't just about a house. This is about years of being the backup plan, the safety net, the daughter who never needed anything, so you gave everything to the one who did." My voice didn't rise. I wasn't yelling, but I could see my words hitting them harder than if I'd screamed. And then I said the one thing I hadn't allowed myself to say before. "I'm not coming back. Not to fix the house. Not to smooth things over. Not to make it okay for you." My mom's eyes widened. Just a little. My dad looked like he was trying to hold his breath. "I don't hate you," I added, "but I don't trust you, and I don't owe you my silence." They didn't argue after that. I stood up, walked toward the door. Just before I stepped out, my mom asked quietly, "So, you're cutting us off?" I paused. "No, I'm just not holding us together anymore." And I left. Driving home, I didn't cry. I thought I might. That some part of me would break open again. But all I felt was calm, because the truth had been spoken. And even if it didn't change them, it changed me. That night, I sat on my tiny apartment floor, sipping tea, looking at my vision board, the one I'd started before all this mess, with cutouts of tiny homes and peaceful gardens, and light pouring in through tall windows. I thought about how far I'd come, not just from that guest house, but from the version of me that would have swallowed her pain to keep the peace. She was gone. And what had taken her place was something solid, something stronger. I pulled out my notebook, the one I'd been using to plan again. Because yes, I was still dreaming, still saving, still building, but this time on my terms. And no one was going to take that from me. Funny how something can be falling apart for so long, and you don't notice until you step away. And when you finally do, you see that maybe it needed to break so something better could grow. There's a strange quiet that follows a storm, not peace. Exactly. More like the absence of chaos. That's what my life felt like in the weeks after that final conversation with my parents. No yelling, no texts flooding my phone, no awkward voicemails pretending nothing had happened. Just space, stillness, and for the first time in a long time, silence that didn't feel threatening. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I had stopped expecting closure. That door had closed, and the air on this side, it was lighter, cleaner. But here's the thing no one tells you. Healing isn't a moment. It's a million small choices. Every single day, I had to decide not to go back, not to call, not to replay the memories like a highlight reel of regrets. Instead, I focused forward. I picked up more hours at work, took on a freelance project, even though I was scared I wouldn't have time. I made time. I had something to build now, not just a place to live, but a life that belonged only to me. Every paycheck, I put a slice into savings. Not out of fear like before, but out of purpose. I wasn't saving to feel safe, I was saving to create. It felt different. I started browsing listings for land outside the city. Just a little space, nothing fancy. I wanted to start over somewhere quiet, somewhere no one could repurpose what I built. I found a small plot 2 hours away. Nothing but overgrown brush and a half-fallen fence. But when I stepped onto that dirt and closed my eyes, I saw it. My future. It wasn't a house yet, just potential. But it was mine. And that mattered more than anything. Meanwhile, the situation with my parents wasn't improving. At least, not for them. I didn't keep tabs, but people loved to talk. Word got around that Dylan and Chelsea had moved back into my parents' basement. The guest house? Still unlivable. Mold remediation alone was going to cost thousands. And apparently, the contractor my dad hired had disappeared, no license, no insurance, no paper trail. Karma doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes, it just quietly rearranges your life until you're stuck living with your own decisions. They were stuck. I wasn't. One Sunday afternoon, I met up with Jordan, my cousin, the only one who hadn't tiptoed around me since everything went down. We grabbed coffees and sat by the lake, letting the sun touch our faces as the wind whispered across the water. I gotta say, he said, tossing a pebble toward the shore, I thought you were gonna blow up at the family dinner, but you just held your ground. I smiled. I didn't need to yell. They already knew. He looked at me. You ever think about forgiving them? I was quiet for a long moment. I don't hate them, I said, but I'm not building bridges just to watch them burn again. If they ever show up with real accountability, maybe. But I'm not waiting for it. He nodded. That's fair. And it was. Because forgiveness without change isn't healing, it's enabling. I wasn't going to pretend the past didn't happen just to make everyone comfortable. Comfort had cost me too much already. Back at home, I cleared out the last box of stuff I'd been too stubborn to unpack. Old journals, some tools, leftover paint swatches from the guest house project. I paused over the samples, cool grays, soft blues, that pale sage green I'd loved for the kitchen walls. I didn't throw them out. Instead, I taped them onto the wall of my new vision board. Because they weren't a symbol of failure, they were proof of my taste, my eye, my ability to create something beautiful. Just because it was taken from me didn't mean it wasn't real. I added new clippings next to them, modern cabins, minimalist furniture, warm lighting, a dog curled up by a window, a backyard fire pit, dreams with roots this time. And at the bottom corner, I wrote 3 words in permanent marker. Start with truth. A few days later, I got a letter. Not an email, not a text. A real, physical letter, handwritten, shaky pen strokes, addressed to me from my grandmother. I opened it slowly, half expecting it to be another lecture or plea to make peace. But it wasn't that. Inside was a single paragraph. Ava, I've watched you hold your ground with grace. I've seen you protect yourself when others tried to make you small. I want you to know I'm proud of you. Not just for what you built, but for walking away from those who didn't value it. Whatever you do next, do it for yourself. With love, Grandma the first read it 3 times, then folded it neatly and slid it into my notebook. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was the one thing I'd needed to hear for a long time, that someone saw me, really saw me. Weeks passed, then months. I started sketching out layouts for the cabin I wanted to build. I watched YouTube videos about off-grid plumbing. I learned how to wire solar panels. I even signed up for a weekend carpentry workshop just to remind myself that I still had it in me. Because I did. The betrayal didn't break me. It woke me up. It reminded me that the safest home I could build wasn't one that stood in someone else's backyard. It was the one I built with clear boundaries, honest foundations, and no hidden strings attached. I wasn't running anymore. I was laying the first stone, this time in the right direction. Funny how your life can feel so broken one day and so full of possibility the next. It doesn't happen all at once. It's quiet, steady, like spring thawing out the cold edges of winter. And when the ground is finally warm again, you don't rush to plant the same seeds. You choose what you grow with care, because now you know exactly what it costs to build something on shaky ground. And you've learned how to stand tall, even when everything around you has crumbled. There's a moment quiet and almost invisible when healing turns into growth. Not the kind people clap for, not a grand announcement, just a stillness inside you that wasn't there before, a peace that replaces all the places where pain used to echo. That's where I was now. I stood barefoot in the middle of my land, soft grass brushing against my ankles, the wind moving slow and warm around me. No house yet, just outlines in the dirt, wooden stakes in the ground, and a set of blueprints rolled up in my bag. But even without walls, I could already feel it. Home. This time, no one could take it from me. Not my parents, not my brother, not a promise dressed up as love. Because this one, I wasn't building for anyone else. No strings, no expectations. Just me, and the truth I'd fought hard to stand on. It had been almost a year since the day they handed me my bags. A year of silence, of space, of steady, deliberate choices that shaped who I was becoming. I never told my parents where I bought land. I didn't post about it, didn't rub it in. I didn't need revenge. Their own decisions had handled that. But people talk, and I'm sure they heard eventually. Still, they never reached out again, not once. And honestly, that told me everything I needed to know. Chelsea did message me once. Short, polite. I hope you're well. Dylan and I moved to a new place. It's smaller, but it's ours. I didn't reply, but I smiled at that last line, because that's what it comes down to in the end. Not what you build, but why you build it. Whether it's rooted in truth or convenience. Whether it belongs to you or just looks like it does on the outside. They finally understood that, even if they learned it the hard way. I kept working, kept sketching, saving, learning. Some nights, I'd light a fire on the property and sit with a blanket and a mug of tea, staring out at nothing and everything at the same time. The stars always looked sharper out here, like the sky had more to say when there were no walls between us. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who wanted so badly to be chosen, to be appreciated. She'd worked herself to the bone, thinking love had to be earned. But now, she was gone. In her place stood someone different, someone quieter, stronger, grounded, someone who didn't need permission to exist in her own life. A few months after I laid the foundation, I got a visit. I was out planting a few trees, maples, slow growing but patient, when I heard the sound of tires on gravel. I turned, wiping sweat from my brow, and saw my grandmother stepping out of a dusty old sedan. She looked out over the land, nodded to herself, like she was checking off a box on a list only she had. "You really did it," she said. I smiled. "Still working on it." She walked slowly to where I stood, eyeing the wood beams in the small shed I was using for storage. "You know," she said, "when your mother first told me you'd walked out, she sounded offended, like you'd broken something sacred. But all I could think was, finally." That caught me off guard. "Finally?" She chuckled, pulling out a small tin of cookies. "You stopped waiting for their approval, took your life into your own hands." I didn't say anything right away, just watched her kneel next to one of the trees and press a hand into the dirt. "You're doing it right, Ava," she said quietly. "You're starting with your feet on the ground." We sat on a bench I'd built from reclaimed wood, sharing cookies and stories as the sun tilted west. She told me about her younger days, about the sacrifices she made, the family dynamics she watched from the sidelines, because speaking up wasn't something women did back then. But she saw it all, and I realized then my story wasn't starting from scratch. It was continuing something she had begun. A quiet resistance that lived inside the women in my family, but had never been given space to breathe. Until now. When she left, she didn't hug me. She just squeezed my shoulder and said, "Make this yours. All of it." And I did. By the end of the year, the frame was up. The roof followed. Then the windows. Each step felt like another piece of myself falling into place. Not fixing what was broken, but building something better on top of the ashes. One night, standing in the middle of the finished frame, I turned in a slow circle, hands on my hips, heart steady. There were no memories I had to avoid here. No ghosts. No strings tied to guilt or betrayal. Just space. Just air. Just possibility. I never got the apology. The one I thought I needed. The one I cried for in the early days, wondering if I was wrong to walk away. But now I know something better. I didn't need them to make it right. I just needed me to stop making it worse by staying. That's the thing about healing. It doesn't always come wrapped in closure. Sometimes it comes when you stop waiting for the people who hurt you to care and start showing up for yourself instead. So that's the real end of this story. Not some dramatic confrontation. Not a full circle family hug. Just me. On a plot of land I bought with my own money. In a house I built with my own hands. With roots I chose on purpose and in peace. A house with deep foundations. And no door I didn't build myself. Story 2. I walked into balloons, cake, candles, and everything else on my birthday. Then I noticed the banner. "Amanda, congratulations." The celebration was for my sister's graduation. So I did this and went out in silence. My sister would cry when she called from the police station 2 weeks later. I ought to have been more aware, but for one foolish ideal moment, I allowed myself to think so. That everything, the cake, the streamers, and the music was for me. That I was finally acknowledged by my family, who had forgot my birthday 3 times in a row due to Amanda's migraine. I noticed the decorations, the visitors, and the lights. When I stepped in, people really turned and applauded. I nearly let out a whole 3 seconds of movie-style laughter. In my imaginary world, I was the most popular kid. Then, "Amanda, congrats." Huge letters in gold. Across the fireplace was a glittering banner. The name of my sister in cursive. Then I was abruptly brought back to the present. As if it were her wedding day, Amanda walked confidently into the room. Gown and tight white dress hat over one arm. For selfies, the phone is already out. When she came, the applause doubled. God forbid you all. She let out a squeal. I will weep. This is similar to everything. She didn't weep. Unless there is a camera or money involved, she never tears. I knew they wouldn't have a gift bag, so I stepped off to the side, still clutching the one I had brought for my dad to give me from them. I was accustomed to it. This was something new to me. I gently asked my mother, who I discovered in the kitchen, whether this had been planned for my birthday. She seemed perplexed, then guilty, then irritated. "We thought we'd celebrate both," she remarked. "In any case, you don't enjoy being the center of attention." Then, as if to provide a hand, my dad spoke out from the couch. "Your favorite cake was ordered. You see, surely we didn't forget. A cake featuring Amanda's face. A hat for graduating. And congrats, Amanda." Inscribed in gold icing, I yelled, "Happy birthday, Oliver!" At last, Amanda turned to see me. She kissed my cheek and said, "Oh, hey, you failed to notify me of your arrival, but that's cool. We can join the celebration together, unless you find that strange." She spoke as if I had just dropped in off the street. "I hope you don't mind," she continued. "For the cake, we sort of used your credit card. Simply put, it was simpler." At that moment, my smile broke. Just in case, I took out my phone and looked at my banking app. There it was, a catering fee of $900. 3 days ago, a $500 venue deposit was made. A $200 floral order with a note for Amanda's big day. I felt heat crawl up my neck, not rage. Not quite yet. Just shame. The kind of shame that sits in your throat and chokes you slowly. I didn't say anything. Didn't make a scene. I just turned around and walked out. I think someone asked where I was going. Amanda might have said, "You're seriously leaving? Ugh. Are you going to be dramatic about it?" I didn't answer because I wasn't being dramatic. I was done. They thought I'd sulk and get over it. What I actually did was file a police report. And 2 weeks later, Amanda would be calling me sobbing from the police station. The first time I realized my sister Amanda could get away with murder. She was 6, and I was 8. She'd stolen a 20 from Mom's purse when I found it in her Barbie dream house and told our parents. Amanda burst into tears, pointed at me, and said, "He made me do it." I was grounded for 2 weeks. Amanda got ice cream because she was clearly distressed. That was the beginning, or at least the first time I remember realizing the scoreboard wasn't exactly balanced in our house. Back then, I thought maybe it would even out when we were older, that maybe eventually people would see through her act. They didn't, because Amanda didn't grow out of that phase. She perfected it. And my parents, they clapped every step of the way. Growing up, she had an audience. Her entire personality was a stage performance. Perfect smile, perfect hair, excellent. Tearful apologies followed by zero consequences. If I got a B+ on a test, my parents would say next time, aim higher. If Amanda got a C-, it was. She's doing her best. She's under a lot of pressure. She once borrowed my laptop for a school project and returned it with a cracked screen and 5 missing keys. When I told her she had to pay for the repair, she rolled her eyes and said, "I'm literally a student. You make money. Don't be selfish." She said it like I was being unreasonable for not wanting to sponsor her tech destruction. But Amanda didn't ask. Amanda took, and my parents called it love. When Amanda said she wanted to do a semester abroad in Italy, my parents raided the emergency fund when I needed help covering a car repair to get to work. After a layoff, I was told to budget better. I paid for my own college. Every cent took on 2 jobs and 8 more ramen noodles than I care to remember. Amanda, meanwhile, got a fully funded degree. No student loans and a monthly allowance so she could focus on school. I wasn't bitter. Not at first. I was exhausted, but I told myself, "You're the older brother you're supposed to sacrifice." Then came the medical lie. A year ago, Amanda called me late one night, sniffling, voice shaking, full Oscar-worthy performance. Said she needed $1,800 for a specialist. Told me not to tell Mom and Dad that she was scared and that it was probably nothing, but it could be serious. I wired the money within the hour. 2 weeks later, she posted a series of photos from a healing retreat into Loom Yoga by the Beach Crystal Therapy, a $600 a night villa. When I confronted her, she blinked at me like I was being unreasonable. I was having an emotional crisis, she said. "You don't understand how draining school has been." My parents' reaction. "Let it go, Oliver. Amanda's always been sensitive." I didn't report her. I didn't even yell. I just started putting distance between us. Quietly, strategically. I changed passwords, removed my cards from shared delivery apps, made sure she couldn't access anything she hadn't earned. But apparently, she'd been planning something anyway. I found out later that Mom had used my old credit card, one I'd forgotten to cancel because it was still linked to the account from last year's Thanksgiving groceries. Apparently, using my money for Amanda's party wasn't stealing. It was convenient. I should have expected it, but it still hit me in the gut hard. After I left the party, I sat in my car in silence for a long time, not crying, just staring, processing. It wasn't even about the money, though that was a blow. It was the realization that no matter how old we got, nothing had changed. I was still the backup plan. The afterthought, the wallet with legs. You know what my mom texted me that night? "You embarrassed Amanda by walking out. You made everything about you again." I didn't react. I opened my photographs app and browsed back through Amanda's graduation postings. There she was, giggling by the cake. I charged for holding up a homemade sign that proclaimed class of 2025. She did it. There was no mention of me. No birthday greeting, no tag, nothing. The next day, she uploaded a photo of her presents and commented, "Very grateful for my great family." Guess who wasn't in any of the pictures? I guess that's when the emotion switched. I wasn't simply hurt anymore, I was outraged. Quietly enraged, the sort that doesn't burn hot but chilly. Focused. I refrained from shouting. I had no intention of posting about it. They never imagined that I would notify someone who was truly capable of doing something. I actually spent the following 2 days collecting receipts. Every charge for the party, including the cake, catering, decorations, and a flower arrangement with the message for Amanda's special day, was visible on my credit card accounts. Amanda's phone number and email address were on the venue confirmation. She received the invoice in her email, the name listed on the lease. Amanda, on behalf of the family. My card was used. Amanda had even asked me an old text from months ago. Your birthday isn't going to be a huge deal, is it? My graduation is coming up, and I kind of want the limelight, haha. I dismissed it at the time, but now it was gold. Proof. Evidence that there was no miscommunication. This was deliberate. Once more, they took advantage of me. Not even my parents knew that I was submitting a report. Not Amanda. Simply entered the police station with a folder and the silent resolve of someone who has had enough. When I identified myself, the officer who took my statement appeared very uneasy. I assured him that was all right. I had no intention of ruining my sister's life. All I wanted was to prevent her from destroying mine. I put my signature on the documents. I responded to the inquiries. I left. Amanda texted me 2 days later. For the Uber from the party, could you please Venmo me? Technically, it was also your night. I didn't respond. She would be crying into her phone in a police station 2 weeks later, and she wouldn't be able to rely on me to tidy up the mess for once. At 6:13 a.m., she called me without leaving a message or text, and her old-fashioned ringtone continued to reverberate in my half-asleep mind. I let the voicemail go. She kept calling. The fourth time, I responded because I believed perhaps someone had passed away, not because I wanted to. To be honest, it would have been simpler. Oliver. Amanda's voice cracked as she gulped. God, oh God. They said, I'm in the police station. Your name appears on a fraud report that has been filed. Why would you? What did you do? I gazed into the phone as if it were a source of power, sat up in bed, and switched on the light. Oh, so you're surprised by that part? Not the section in which you defrauded me. Quiet. No, I didn't steal. On the defense, she responded immediately. We both attended a party. It's okay, Mom said. Is this what you're doing to your own sister? It was there. The traditional Amanda defense tactic. Play the family loyalty card after crying. If that doesn't work, turn it into a monologue about a martyr. Are they questioning you? Calmly, I asked. Yes. They stated that the card wasn't mine, and that they needed me to confirm the purchases. And I might potentially face fraud charges. You're wrecking my life because of a birthday party, Oliver. No. I stated that years of treating me like a walking ATM are destroying your own life. I learned what actually transpired later. It turns out that when I left my wallet on the counter during a family visit months ago, Amanda took a picture of my credit card. She paid for the venue, deposit, cake, and decorations by manually entering the card's number, expiration date, and security code. I thought he wouldn't mind, she stated in response to the officer's question about how she obtained the card data. It was for us both. She acknowledged that she never inquired. I was never informed. Never even made a suggestion. Did he grant you permission? The officer inquired. Well, he didn't say no, Amanda answered, blinking. We were dealing with reasoning at that level. My phone was exploding like a fire alarm by that afternoon. Texts from my parents, including my aunt, with whom I hadn't communicated for 3 years. You went too far, Mom. Amanda is inconsolable. Do you really want to put your own sister in jail because of a miscommunication, Dad? And what happened to discussing things like grown-ups, Karen? Lawsuits aren't necessary for everything. None of them got a response from me. I finally cared more about myself. Not because I didn't care. Amanda visited my flat that evening. I had no idea she was aware of my residence. I'm still unsure of how she entered the structure. Most likely yelled at the buzzer, intimidated a delivery man, or coerced a neighbor. Every method she uses. I barely opened the door to get a glimpse of her face. Red tear, blotchy and streaked, but not in a pitiful manner. And I continued to act like the victim. She said, I'm not here to fight. Please, I just ask that you drop the report. This could go on my record, they said. Everything from travel to jobs could be impacted. I did more than just look at her. I actually saw her, and I didn't see a sister who was afraid. The girl had never been told no before and was still unsure of what it meant. You made a false statement about paying for medical care. You stole my credit card, I said. On my birthday, you threw a party for yourself and pretended that I was the cause of the trouble. You want me to fix it now? I had no idea it would progress this far, she muttered. I said that was the issue. You never get very far because people like me never take it personally. Bring on the tears. The second round. 3, perhaps. Despite my inability to count, they arrived. You're punishing me with this, she said. Jealousy has always been a part of you. I was genuinely amused by that one. Are you genuinely envious of Amanda? Yes, I said. You're correct. Being the sibling who ruins other people's credit scores and manipulates her way through life has always been my dream, she squinted. As if someone had switched a switch, the sobbing ceased. You think you're so perfect, she snapped. But you're just bitter, you're pathetic. You think being right makes you better than everyone else? No, I said, but it does mean I'm not paying for a crime I didn't commit. I closed the door on her mid-rant, didn't slam it, didn't yell, just closed it because I was done being the audience to Amanda's one-woman drama over the next week. Things escalated. My parents started calling daily, not to apologize. Not to ask how I was, but to demand that I make things right. Apparently, Amanda's job offer at a marketing firm had been put on hold due to the investigation. One of the background checks flagged the police report, and instead of facing the consequences, Amanda had gone full meltdown. Are you happy now? My mom yelled over the phone. She's devastated. Her future is ruined. I was never trying to ruin her future. I said I was trying to protect mine. They didn't hear me. They never do. A few days later, my dad left me a voicemail. His tone was calm, quiet, almost gentle. Son, we know you felt underappreciated. And I get it, I really do, but this isn't the way. This is family. And family means sometimes we do things we don't like. That's exactly how it is. I played the message twice. Once to hear what he said, once to hear what he didn't say. He never once recognized Amanda's actions. Never apologized. Just gently persuaded me to let it go, to bend again, to preserve the peace. And for the first time in my life, I understood something. Remaining the peace was merely code for remaining silent while they took advantage of you. A week after that, I got a message from Amanda. No emojis, no loss of passive aggression. Just a single line. You prevail. I hope you feel proud of who you are. In all honesty, I wasn't proud. I wasn't boasting. I was not even joyful. I had just finished. I'm over my guilt. I didn't own that. I've finished paying for errors I didn't make. As they praised Amanda for breathing, they finished portraying the quiet, trustworthy brother. They had forced me out of every event, every limelight, and every setting where I ought to have been important. They were now taken aback. At last I had entered my own. You're the winner by the time Amanda texted me one last time. I hope you feel proud of who you are. I believed that the climax had arrived. I believed that the worst was gone, and that the drama had reached its climax. That perhaps they would finally stop bothering me. I was mistaken, since it seems like Amanda being trapped is the only thing that is more hazardous than her sobbing. Amanda is cornered and has backup. My mother arrived at my workplace 3 days after I texted her. She didn't even make a call beforehand. She requested to talk with me immediately after entering the lobby, as if she owned the space. She gave me a stern look as I came down, as if I had directly compromised the family line. I'm a better parent than this. No, she answered. Hi there? No. How are you? Let's go right to the guilt. I signaled that we go outdoors. Her heels clacking on the pavement like judgment. She followed them. She said, You've embarrassed your sister. She may not be hired today. Are you aware of what this means? It may wreck her entire career. I said, Yes. In most cases, that is the outcome of deception. She flushed. Out of anger, not embarrassment. You're acting spitefully. More than one party. Oliver, you were raised by us. We covered the cost of your meals, sports, and school attire. Yes, I said. In exchange, I paid for your utilities for 2 years and made a down payment on your home. Of course, let's discuss it. You once got me trainers when I was in 5th grade. In fact, she dared to imply that was up to you. You were never requested to assist us. No, they didn't inquire. They simply anticipated. When Amanda used up all of her allowance, she looked to me to fill the void. When Dad lost the power, while Amanda received everything, even my birthday, on a silver platter, Bill expected me to be content with scraps. I responded, I'm not dropping the report, and if Amanda is still sane, she will accept the officer's offer and go on. My mother gave me a scowl. Amanda isn't being punished alone. This family is being punished by you. I gave a shrug. Then, perhaps, this family ought to have ceased treating me like a checkbook stranger. She was standing there in a rage, her arms crossed in the heels she had most likely worn to Amanda's party, as I stepped back inside. 2 days later, there was another escalation. Amanda shared a lengthy, ambiguous reflection on social media on familial betrayal and how some individuals would stab you in the back simply to feel superior. She labeled our entire extended family, but she didn't say my name, every aunt, cousin, and even grandmother. Concern and perplexity were mixed together in the remarks. Who would harm you like that? Amanda, you're really strong. Get up. Your family should defend you, not harm you. I took a screenshot, but I didn't respond. Each line. When I woke up the following morning, I saw 5 missed calls from family members I hadn't spoken to since I was a youngster, and 1 direct message from our cousin Layla, who didn't know the whole situation and just wrote that they were drowning. Avoid giving them a lifeboat. Amanda wasn't finished yet. She sent my supervisor an email. Take a moment to process that. She claimed I was having a personal crisis and might be inappropriately snapping at loved ones in an email she sent to my boss, posing as a worried family friend. Fortunately, my boss is the kind of person who doesn't put up with bullshit, runs marathons, and drinks black coffee. In one line, she sent me the email and asked if I needed to block anyone. I answered, "You might want to block Amanda. She is experiencing an identity crisis on a daily basis." We chuckled about it, but I was secretly shaken. Amanda wasn't simply in a panic. In an attempt to stay afloat, she dragged down anyone she could because she was spiraling. Perhaps because the evidence was so clear, the police case proceeded more quickly than I had anticipated. Perhaps because everything had Amanda's digital fingerprints on it. Perhaps because the reporting officer was the type of man who disliked being misled. In exchange, they offered Amanda a deal that included paying back the entire amount, performing 100 hours of community service, and attending a workshop on financial accountability. No charges were brought, no long-term record. She only needed to acknowledge her mistake, admit it, find out what she said no to, claim that it was embarrassing, said she would seem guilty as a result. The officer's response: "You're at fault." After a while, her pride broke. The marketing business that had been reviewing her application learnt about the report, not because she suddenly became self-aware. The offer was withdrawn. No ideal profession, no launch pad, no work. Amanda, sitting in her room at her parents' house, yelling in between calls to unaffordable lawyers. This time, guess who didn't save her? In a group call, my parents tried one more time to get me to come back. The tone was subdued, like a public relations effort. "All we want to do is chat." My mother spoke in a kind way. "As a household." Too quiet for a second, Amanda was on the cue. "Then I apologize. All right? I had no intention of hurting you." I've never heard an apology so bland. Like when a kid shoves someone on the playground and has to apologize. "For what specifically are you sorry?" I inquired. "For taking your card without asking." Another pause. "That was not the case." "You took from me," I said. There was a deep quiet on the other end. "Your point has been made." At last, my father stated in a chilly tone, "Are you going to disown us now? That's what it is?" "No," I said. "I'm done acting like any of this is typical." I hung up after that. No drama, no shouting. Simply be silent. Final clarification. After completing the class, Amanda began working part-time at a pet supply store 3 months later. Although I had relocated out of state and received a promotion, our parents had yet to speak to me directly. A new flat. A few friends who didn't know me as Amanda's brother, but just as me. I received a message one evening. "Amanda saw that you had moved once again. I hope everything is going well. Someone to chat to would be really helpful." I looked at it for a long time. A cup of tea was then produced. My phone was switched off, and I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flash like little, quiet explosions. Cleaning up her mess wasn't my life's purpose for once, and I at last felt liberated in that quiet. I still feel conflicted about it occasionally, not remorse. That's right. Only that tiny voice in your mind says, what would happen if you simply let it go again? The years of stillness, however, come back to me. The birthdays that weren't mine, the money that was taken. I also know that I made the correct decision. Still, what are your thoughts? Was I too severe? Or was it time for her to be held responsible at last? Tell me in the comments below. I really want to know what people think of it. And it's not yours if you like the plot or simply like seeing family drama play out. Press the subscribe button. Story 3. I believed that my brother and I were collaborating on a business venture after learning that he had launched it without my consent. I informed investors that I had backed out. The remarks were like a kick to the gut. I gazed at my phone as the message from William, one of the important investors we had been collaborating with, lit up the screen. I'm eager for today's launch. I wanted to congratulate you, even though Rob informed me that you had chosen to take a back seat. This is enormous. My throat tightened each breath. Take a step back. I never took a step back. That meeting was intended to include me. When we debuted, I was meant to be there. However, Rob had managed to go forward without my presence. As I struggled with my laptop, my hands shaking, I accessed our firm's website and saw the brand I had created and the company I had spent years creating. While Rob dealt with the investors, I worked late into the night on the pitch deck. Everything is alive. What's the worst? There was no sign of my name. In a matter of seconds, I retrieved my keys and left. It was close to Rob's office. I'd been there 100 times. Our office, like I had imagined, the location where we had spent months working, getting ready for this. I ignored the startled welcome from the receptionist and raced through the doors. I continued to walk till one suddenly entered the conference room and saw him. In front of a group of investors, Rob is grinning, joking, and chatting as if he had started the business from the beginning. As if I hadn't witnessed every single second, he spotted me right away. For a brief moment, his smile wavered. Then he got better. His arms were stretched wide as he spoke. She's there, my sister. This is Natalie, everyone. The entire room turned to face me. I hardly noticed the investors' courteous nods. My brother Rob was the one I had trusted the most, and my vision was narrowing in on him while my heart pounded in my chest. With my voice dangerously steady, I stepped forward. What on earth is this? Rob was so bold as to chuckle and wave it away. Let's go discuss outside, Nat. No. My voice pierced the space. We are now speaking in front of everybody. A few investors traded. It looks nice. Give them a look. Show them the reality. The investor who had unwittingly given me the tip, William, cleared his throat. Is anything wrong? I looked over at him. Yes, there is, William, because I remained with this firm. I glared at Robert. That was untrue. There were murmurs in the room. I stepped forward again, clenching my hands. This took me years to create. It was me who thought up the idea. Half of these encounters were secured by myself. You're standing here now, pretending that you achieved this by yourself. Rob's face grew serious. No, let's avoid creating a scene. I gave a harsh chuckle. You're scared about making a disturbance after stealing my company. The tension grew in the room. William looked between us as he reclined in his chair. Rob, what is she discussing? Rob detested having to stand on the place. I could tell by the way his jaw clenched and his fingers quirked at his sides. Then he got better. He put on a nonchalant grin and faced the investors once more. Listen, it was only a misunderstanding. My sister and I. He gave me a glance. She concluded that this wasn't the perfect fit for her after we had some disagreements over direction. I tightened my jaw. He was incredibly skilled at deceiving and manipulating others, just enough to make sense. My voice pierced the room as I turned to the investors. That is untrue. I didn't back down. These were the meetings I was expected to attend. I should have been here today. William scowled. Rob? She claims to have remained involved. Rob sighed, feigned frustration. He said, look, as though he were the more sensible one. That's precisely why we didn't proceed together. Despite her passion, Natalie is emotional about this. I had some difficult business choices to make. It made my blood boil. You mean that in order to claim all the credit, you had to ignore me? Spreading his hands, he pretended to be innocent. I made the right choice for the business. Nat, you weren't prepared for this. That was the last straw. I inhaled deeply and slowly before scanning the room. William. The first spoke in a strong, clear voice. You are aware of the amount of effort I put into this venture, do you not? He gave a cautious nod. Yes. Our first meetings were arranged by you. I looked for another investor. You didn't, either. The proposal we offered you was written by me. One more nod. I watched slowly. Realization dawned on their faces. Rob's meticulously constructed lie was beginning to show signs of weakness. But I wasn't done yet. I turned back to him, my voice cold. You stole from me my ideas, my business, my future. And if you think I'm just going to walk away quietly, I took a step closer, looking him dead in the eye. Then you really don't know me at all. Silence for the first time. Rob didn't have a comeback as he could lie all he wanted. Now, however, people were watching and I wasn't going anywhere. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, all the indications were there. But I disregarded them because I wanted to believe in my brother. I wanted to think that for once we were equals. That this wasn't simply another one of those moments when Rob stole something from me, thought it was his by default, and left me scurrying to pick up the pieces. Maybe it was my error, not comprehending that we had always been playing two distinct games. I had been striving to develop something substantial, while Rob had been waiting for the proper opportunity to take it. I could still hear his voice in my brain from months ago, when I initially brought up the notion of beginning this business together. Are you sure about this? He had inquired, sitting back in his chair with that usual lazy smile, the one that always made me feel like he was humoring me. I mean, do you really believe you can manage running a full company? I had forced to grin, even though something about his tone had irked me. Yes, Rob, I've been working on this for years. I simply believe that we would work well together. I'm better at operations, but you're a fantastic pitcher. We counterbalance one another. I knew then what I know now, but he had acted as though he had given it some thought. He never intended to become my partner. He had only waited to determine whether it was worthwhile. In order for us to start without totally depending on outside investors, I had done the early work, created the business strategy, and saved money for years. I had been the one creating partnership agreements and reading law manuals, learning the tedious yet necessary aspects of managing a business. Rob was skilled at persuading others to believe in him and getting them enthused without having to put in the necessary effort. That's why I believed we would work well together. I was aware of my own shortcomings. Speaking in front of an audience was something I detested. In terms of negotiations, I lacked Rob's confidence, but I was well versed in this industry. I was prepared to tell him that I had created it from the ground up. I just didn't know that Rob didn't consider me a partner. I only served as a stepping stone. At the time, the first red flag had been tiny and almost perceptible. One late night, Rob had entered the room and glanced over my shoulder as I was finishing up our pitch deck. "Let me show you this," he had stated nonchalantly. I shrugged, but I had scowled. "It's okay. I'm not as good at speaking as you are." "That's right." Clapping me on the shoulder, he had murmured, "The numbers are yours to do. I'll speak for you. We operate best like that, don't we?" It had felt innocuous at the moment. It was logical. The statistics were my strong suit. Rob spoke more fluently. However, I ought to have listened more intently, because Rob took the lead in every interaction we had with investors after that. I wasn't only a supporting character. They hardly acknowledged me. I initially persuaded myself that I was just being too suspicious. Every time he introduced me, he referred to me as his bright sister, who was in charge of all the backstage operations. His explanations were increasingly ambiguous. The introductions grew shorter, and before I knew it, I was completely excluded from team meetings. A few weeks before to the launch, I had already pushed back once. As I watched Rob work on his laptop, I crossed my arms and stated, "I need to be in those investor meetings. As much as you have been working on this, so have I." He hadn't even raised his head. "Investors don't want to deal with both of us. I know. They want simplicity and cleanliness. One face for the business." I had clenched my jaw. Cleaning me out of my own firm is not something I desire. At last, Rob had looked up at me. Then his face was deliberately neutral. "Nat, hurry up. This isn't about ego. I'm the one who can sell it, even though you're skilled at it. That's the nature of business." He had stated it so nonchalantly and firmly that I had told myself I was just overanalyzing it, even though I had felt something unsettling and my stomach was churning. For what reason would Rob betray me? I had disregarded the previous warning signs for the contracts that were never completed. The manner he repeatedly put off filing legal documents by claiming they weren't urgent. The manner he consistently demanded to answer investor calls by himself. I didn't realize the truth until I was there in that conference room, looking at my company with my name removed. This was something he had been planning for months. He had been holding out for the ideal opportunity to interrupt me, and he had done it today in front of those investors. My work had been taken by him. Worst of all, nobody appeared shocked. None of the investors appeared astonished, but William and the others were uneasy. For what reason would they? Rob was the first to give them his interpretation. For weeks, if not longer, he had been sowing the seed that I was apprehensive and anxious about running a business that I had withdrawn from. And now that I was standing there, I understood the reality. Long before the launch, he had begun deleting me. I forced my hands to stop trembling as I inhaled deeply, thinking that I was just going to walk away and give him all. I had worked so hard to build, he would be rudely awakened. I had worked for this for years. I wasn't going to give up easily to let him take it. With my head held high, I left the meeting room. However, the weight of everything struck me immediately as soon as I went outdoors. In front of his investors, I had just revealed my brother's secrets. I had made everything public, but had it changed anything? I tried to calm myself by taking a deep breath, but my mind was racing. Rob had spent months getting ready for this. He had meticulously and gradually constructed his version of events so that he could later write me off as sentimental, challenging, and unprofessional. What's the worst? He was believed by some of them. Their looks showed it to me. Hesitancy. I doubt it. Was I being honest? Or was I only a resentful sister who couldn't take losing a business deal? I felt ill to my stomach at the prospect. This business has been founded by myself. I had done the planning, the research, and the actual labor. I now had to battle to establish that I even belonged there, because Rob was the first to reach the investors. I refused to allow it to occur. I pulled out my phone and began dialing. To William was the first. He was the only investor in whom I had any degree of confidence. Even though he was unaware of it, he had been the one to alert me in the first place. It took him 2 rings before he picked up. Natalie. His tone was guarded as he said, "You and I must meet." I murmured, ignoring the idle chatter. A pause occurred. Next. "I'm not sure if that's a smart idea. It's already a disaster." I tightened my jaw. "The truth must then be told to you, the actual truth. Because you are supporting a scam if you support Rob." A sigh followed by another silence. "Okay. You have 10 minutes, please." I only needed it. An hour later, I ran into him in a coffee shop. I wasn't come to beg, but he seemed just as uneasy as I did. To correct the record, I was present. I launched my laptop and accessed all of my files. Minutes of meetings, notes, and early versions of our pitch deck. I've edited them all, emails I had started with investors. I showed him the tale, but I didn't just tell him it. And I noticed a glimmer of uncertainty on his face for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Have faith in Rob, not in me. This person doesn't appear to have taken a step back. As he scrolled through my never-ending employment history, he acknowledged. For that reason, I didn't. I spoke aggressively. Rob took it all and acted as like I didn't exist. William put a hand over his chin and sat back in his chair. "Natalie, I won't lie to you. It's a mess. Mess is disliked by investors, I am aware. Rob is also a strong advocate. I am also aware of that." He paused, then gave me a close look. "Natalie, what do you want?" I inhaled deeply. "I want my name returned. I want my business to return." After examining me for a while, William nodded. "Let me see what I can accomplish." It was something, but not a promise. And I was certain of one thing at that very time. This was not something Rob could get away with. Not now. The days that followed were chaotic. I began contacting all of our early backers as well as investors and business associates. I didn't speak poorly of Rob. I didn't take offense. I simply revealed the truth to them. The flaws in his story began to emerge gradually. Then an unforeseen event occurred. I was contacted by a reporter. They had learnt about it, most likely from an investor who didn't want to be involved in a controversy and desired my perspective. I was hesitant the first time. I didn't want this to become a public altercation. Then I pictured Rob, grinning like he had won, standing in that conference room, and I came to see that I was no longer only battling for myself. I was standing up for everyone who had ever been excluded from their own achievement. I thus consented to the interview. 2 days later, the piece was published. siblings who become competitors or partners in business. The backstory of a startup conflict. Not only was it not biased against Rob, but it was also not biased against me. It explained how Rob and I had founded the business together, how I had been actively involved from the start, how he had purposefully kept me out of meetings and started the business under his name alone, and most importantly, how the legal aspect of things wasn't as safe as Rob had claimed. Uncertainty was the one thing that investors detested more than negative headlines, so that portion really got to him. Suddenly, Rob's business didn't seem as stable as he had said. What came next caught me off guard. For the first time since I had faced Rob in the conference room, he phoned me. In fact, he phoned me when he picked up the phone. I took a moment to look at the screen before responding. "Nat," he whispered in a strained voice. "We must speak." I remained silent. I allowed him to fill the void. He remarked, "This is getting out of control. Investors are in a panic. We must reach a consensus." I breathed out slowly, reclining in my seat. "A contract." He spoke quickly and eagerly, as if he were trying to convince me of something, and continued, "You can still be a part of this. This is something we can resolve. All you have to do is stop." I genuinely laughed. "Give up. What did I say to stop?" "Rob, speaking the truth." He gave a quick breath. "It's not only about the truth, you know. Perception is key. This is becoming worse for us both because of you." I gave a head shake. "No, Rob, your theft of my firm just made things worse." "Quiet." Then he whispered at last, "I ought to have acted differently." There was no apology. It was the closest thing I would ever get from him, but not really. And nothing changed as a result. I wasn't going to ignore this. Rob had committed one deadly error. He thought I would say nothing. He thought I was going to give him the victory. Now, however, the truth was now on my side, and I intended to ensure that it was seen by everybody. Rob had misjudged me. He believed he could use this appeal to his advantage. I was persuaded by his return to power that opposing him would simply exacerbate the situation. But everything was already seized by him. What was left for me to lose? The issue was that I had established this company with the long term in mind, carefully constructing the foundation, brick by brick. Rob was anxious for attention and had hurried to launch, eager to establish his worth before he was prepared. Now that the truth was out, the whole structure was about to fall apart, and fractures were appearing quickly. I refused to allow him to drag me down with him. One of the big investors sent me an email the morning after his call. Others were beginning to question Rob's account of events, and William had been pulling strings behind the scenes. The message was apparent, despite the email's briefness and professionalism. We must speak. I didn't think twice. An hour later, my heart was racing as I got to the investor's office. I had no idea what to anticipate. I might have been brought in to help resolve the situation. Alternatively, they may have been attempting to persuade me to give in. However, Rob was sitting there with his arms crossed, appearing as though he had just been beaten up. As I stepped in, it offered me hope. Daniel, the principal investor, motioned for me to take a seat. He wasted no time. "We have reviewed your paperwork, Natalie." His fingers tapped the desk as he spoke. "You obviously had a big part in the founding of this business." I didn't unwind, not quite yet. According to Rob, there was a misunderstanding. Daniel looked at him and went on to say that you two disagreed over the company's direction, and he took the initiative when you chose to back off. Rob took advantage of the moment and nodded rapidly. "That's precisely it. I ought to have handled it more skillfully. I ought to have spoken up more. I wasn't attempting to exclude Natalie, though." I held a scarf back. He was still attempting to steer the narrative. Still attempting to pretend that this was not blatant stealing, but rather some regrettable misunderstanding. I looked Daniel in the eye. "That is untrue." Rob tensed. "Nat, hurry up." I looked to the investors. Let's be clear. Without me, Rob didn't just go ahead. He made sure I was excluded from important decisions, deliberately altered contracts, and deleted my name from paperwork. I took the evidence out of my backpack, texts and emails, documents detailing the times Rob had purposefully ignored me. For the first time since this began, I spread them out on the table. Rob seemed anxious. Daniel furrowed his brow as he leafed through the papers. The only sound in the room was the moving of papers. His face was inscrutable when he looked up again. "This is a significant problem. At last, he said, "A legal dispute that might harm the company's brand before it even launches is the last thing we want." Rob bent over. "That's right." Daniel interrupted him with a raised hand for that reason. "Therefore, we must address this right now." Rob appeared briefly relieved, as if he believed the investors were going to support him. Daniel then faced me. "What do you want, Natalie?" Rob's head jerked in my direction. As soon as things changed, I could sense the tension in the air. Now I was in complete control. For a moment, I allowed the stillness to persist, observing Rob's twitches and his tightened jaw as he realized he had finally lost control of the situation. Then I said something. "I want my ownership stake in the business returned." I stated that I wanted Rob to publicly acknowledge that I was a co-founder and not simply a departing assistant, and that I had full rights and ownership of my contribution. Rob became pallid. "You can't be serious, Nat." I turned abruptly to him. "You also didn't believe me when you took my company, did you?" Daniel thought it was reasonable and leaned back. Rob exhaled with frustration. "On the basis of a technicality, you will destroy this business." My fist tightened. "You did it already." "Quiet." Daniel looked at the other investors, then gave them a nod. "That's something we can deal with." However, Rob gave him a stern look. "We can't let this happen again. We put money into individuals we can trust. Additionally, your credibility isn't looking well at the moment." That struck like a blow. Rob winced, nearly grinning. For him, it wasn't about the money. It has nothing to do with business. It has to do with his reputation. His reputation was crumbling now. There was nothing more valuable than that. Shortly after that, the conference came to an end, and Rob followed me into the corridor, his expression tense, with hardly disguised annoyance. This couldn't be ignored, could it? He gave a hiss. I tilted my head gently in his direction. "If I had done something to you, would you have forgiven me?" We both knew the truth, so he didn't respond. I exhaled deeply while gazing at him. I had been protecting this brother for years. Even though I shouldn't have, I trusted the brother. However, this time, I wasn't going to let him change the conclusion this time. "You ought to be thankful." Finally, I said, "I would have ruined you if I had truly wanted to." For the first time, Rob swallowed hard. There was no comeback for him. Feeling lighter than I have in months, I turned and left. I was taking back not just my company, but also myself.